anymore, but he had heard me, whatever, jamming away on those like songs for God.
He had moved
He's probably so sick of them by then.
He had moved to LA right at that point,
Yeah.
and so you were actually you mixed the record kind of long distance. He was sending you a mix, and you'd say, "Do this," and that sounds good. And
yeah.
Did you expect that he was gonna do what he did with it, or?
Well, I mean, he made the drums sound big and fat, and the low end sound really low, like really boo, and that's kind of, I think, was sort of that was the idea, is to make it sound sort of like hip hoppy, sort of pop, but mostly pop rock, but like definitely with an emphasis on the low end and the slammingness.
Was there outside music you were listening to at the time that got you, like, that was driving you to go in that direction with the record, or was it?
No, I mean, really, I've been like, it sounds like a stupid thing to say, but I've been pretty busy for the past like 4 or 5 years, and I mean, I spend most of my time listening to stuff that I'm working on. I mean, like, whether it be like a demo that I haven't written lyrics for or something like that, of a song that I'm trying to get finished, or like, and then when I was doing studio session work for certain people or whatever, like I would be learning bass parts and stuff like that. So I mean, when I end up listening to music recreationally, it usually is purely just for recreation, and it's not like I'm having like sort of any Zen experiences, more so than just kind of like that's a breath of fresh air or something like that. You know what I mean?
The interesting thing Josh Greer said last spring, in asking him what was like the biggest kind of influence you had in recording that record, was he said that you just wouldn't settle for anything less than a good take.
Right.
And for them, instead of just going and, well, put our ideas down, it was like, no, keep doing it until it's really hot,
right.
every take. And I remember when that record came out and didn't have much attention or anything, you kept talking about it. You said, "Man, I keep listening to that Tapes and Tapes record. It's really good. It's really amazing. It's like it keeps growing on me."
Yeah.
And within a few months, they needed a bass player, and you stepped in, and it was interesting to see, again, just in you talking about how each step of the way you end up, something pushes you to be playing that much more, and just like playing with so much more, and then you're playing even more than you had been before that.
Right.
Playing with tapes all the time, albeit bass, but being in that environment and playing a lot more Vicious stuff. And then the new Vicious record, Parade, came out and was recorded kind of when you've been playing even more music.
Right.
What do you feel like was the shift in doing the Parade stuff from Don't Look So Surprised?
You mean in terms of style?
Well, style, but also in just like in terms of how you ended up approaching it, and how you did it. You recorded it again at Darren's studio.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was actually it's a lot longer story than probably we want to go into, so I'll talk really fast. I basically started recording it on 4-track a year and a half ago or something like that. And then I sort of worked all these songs up to partial fruition, and then brought them over to this studio, Dave Russ's studio, and then me and Adrian took them and dumped them into Pro Tools, and then started working on and laying down drum parts. Then I joined Tapes and Tapes, and then everything that I had done up to that point just came to a screeching halt, and then I was on tour for a year. And then I got back, and I was like, well, crap, I've still got this album half finished that we need to get done. And then so we learned a couple more songs in the meantime, and then went into the studio in March, and then knocked out like 3 or 4 more songs that were new or whatever, and then like the songs that we had before, we finished up, and then managed to squeeze it out, like in like 2 weeks or something like that, or just got it done.
Right. Well, and the kind of, you were saying this earlier, the song on that record that's the most kind of over the top production wise is "Stay With Me Tonight."
Yeah.
What in doing a song like this, what was driving that? Just like take this.
Well, I had written the piano part actually at City Cabin, like, I don't know, 2002 or 2003. It's like, it kind of reminded me of the Peanuts Gang, the Charlie Brown theme song. You know what I'm talking about? Well, with the song playing, I can't think of it, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. And so I had the keyboard part written for a long time, and then we started practicing in the basement of the house that I lived in with Matt Kretzman, the keyboard player from Tapes and Tapes, and we were sharing the same practice space. And then suddenly there was a piano, or electric piano, in the basement of our house when we were practicing. So then I was like, hey, well, I've got this one song that's on piano, blah, blah, blah. So then we actually worked that song up, and then finally it happened, which turned out
Well, and
pretty
Matt
cool.
plays trombone as well, and so you ended up having him play trombone on the track. And,
Right, yeah.
Was there, I mean, did you go into it knowing you wanted to have something this big and with all these different things, or was it just kind of naturally a fruition of all this stuff?
Like, I think as long as it sounds good, throw it all at the wall. You know, it's like I'm not one of those guys that's like, if it doesn't sound good with one guitar and one bass and one drum, it isn't any good. I was like, I would like the production to be as lush as possible without being ridiculous. It's a very fine line, I've found, like where ridiculous starts and good stops.
What do you know, now that you're, you know, as Christopher McGuire told you to listen a little bit more, or you figured out that you needed to listen a little bit more, what do you find yourself listening for the most when you're listening to things and trying to decide, make those decisions, whether you're producing somebody else or working on your own stuff?
That's too much of a question to answer all at once. I mean, like, the listening part, like, is even, like, from the most simplest thing, like, if you hit your guitar harder when you're playing, it doesn't sound as good as if you find some sort of, like, you know, like, listening to that kind of simple crap, and then just, like, in the band setting, like, listening to find where your part fits in with the group of parts, you know? It's like, a lot of times, like, people that can't really hear each other so well in the practice space, they'll be playing songs, and they'll think, oh, this is awesome, you know, my part sounds awesome, you know, I'm guessing everybody else's parts sound awesome. Then they get in the studio, it's like, well, my part has all these notes that don't work with you know, the keyboard player's part or whoever, you know, and it's just like, well, you know, it's good to be able to listen and hear what everybody's doing, so you would have known that before you got to the studio and have to, like, recalibrate all your stuff, and, you know, you're just wasting money, spending time in the studio, relearning your parts, blah, blah, blah.